Okie dokie. Well, there wasn't any Jigsaw part for this week, right?
No.
No.
Okay. I'm gonna start with just like the Socratic seminar part for discussing.
Hmm.
Am I am I cutting out bad?
You're just really quiet.
Is it better now?
It's better if you're closer to it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be closer.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, we. I guess we could do the first Socratic seminar part after. Just look over this for a
Mhm.
second. I thought the Bluey episode from this week was super cute.
It's one of my
Um,
favorites.
it's a good one. I hadn't seen that one before. Um, but I think what this one made me think a lot about was we learned about like modeling and I can't remember what was it like the do like no it was the Bobo doll, is that what it was called?
Mm-hmm.
The kids would like be aggressive to it, and it so this movie just made me think like directly about how modeling works because Bluey like I feel like opened up and learned how to be herself and do hard things more from modeling that person in the movie. So, or whatever it was, maybe it wasn't a person.
I think Bluey was really fun in this episode, but I think Bingo like steals the show a little bit with her. Um, I think Bingo being Bingo kind of helps Bluey like learn to just be herself because Bingo isn't afraid of just, running through a movie theater or standing under a air dryer and just wiggling around. So Bingo in this episode like cracks me up. It's so funny. Um, but yeah, I love that Bluey just kind of learns that um, being different is okay. And I think that's so important for kids to learn because they want to be like everyone else, but it's okay to be a little odd and a little different and run around movie theaters and everything. So this is one of my favorite episodes. So
Mm. That's about the article video. I don't remember what it was, but the body ritual among the narcissism, something like that. But I thought it was interesting when it was talking about that without those rituals, one can advance to the higher stage of civilization. And I thought that was an interesting way to put it. I don't know. I just thought the whole article was kind of interesting. I guess I have a question based off of that. It's like, how in our classrooms do we help our students rise to higher levels and always seeking to do their best but also like having them feel like they're doing good enough? You know what I mean? Hopefully that made sense.
I think just by giving them feedback can really help them grow. And then giving them praise, but giving them the correct kind of praise because I think we've talked about this where or maybe it was one of the studies this week where like giving the wrong kind of praise can make them more narcissistic than if we were giving them the correct kind of praise. So like so not so much praising them, but praising their abilities and their advancements. So I think if we point out, hey, you're doing really good and you've advanced in this or you've scored higher in this, it helps them see that, oh, I can achieve these higher levels. But if we're just like saying, oh, you're so smart or you're such a good, blank and blank, it can kind of make them feel like, yeah, I'm so much better than all these kids kind of thing. And that doesn't help them rise. So I think focusing on the skills they're building and the skills that they're doing well is really good at helping them advance.
I agree with that a lot. Um, I I think that's something that's I don't know, kind of hard to achieve perfectly 100% of the time because you're gonna have such a split classroom. Um, but it makes me think of something we talked about more at the beginning of the semester about just like trying to reach the middle and like because if you go where like the students are achieving faster, then everyone else will get left behind. But it's where everyone's gonna be bored if you make sure that every single person understands everything. Um, so I think it's never gonna be perfect, but I think that's one thing that can help is just trying to reach the middle. And um I think modeling to yourself about like having if you have high expectations for yourself, then I don't know, I feel like you have more credibility to have high expectations for your students because if you don't show up on time and prepared and looking professional, and you're sometimes distracted in class and not prepared, yeah, I just feel like you can't hold your students to that same level. So.
Mhm. I like it. Thanks for sharing.
I don't know if you guys, okay, on that article you were talking about though, about the like the body ritual one. I don't know if you guys like saw this part, but Nasi Rama or whatever it is American spelled backwards.
Oh my gosh, it
Oh,
is.
It's meant to be kind of like a um reframing things that happen in America. Like it talked about like tooth torture, and that's
Mm-hmm.
like the dentist, but like reframing it. And I can't. Let me see. Yeah, like
oh,
that's the holy mouth men, and some of the things I couldn't figure out what it was, but like the woman baking their heads, I'm like,
Yeah. Is that like supposed to be like hairdressers, like under the dryers?
I
Like
think it could be that.
I don't know. That was a wild article to me.
Mhm. Why do you think he had us read that article?
I don't even know. I just got finished reading it. I was like, I'll never read that
I
again.
think it's kind of to show that like we make things kind of going back to like last week with the social norms. But like things become like so ingrained in who we are and in our culture that we just kind of do it without thought. And they're literally like torturing themselves without thought. And so I think that it kind of connects to that. But I was like looking at everything else that we were reading, and I'm kind of like, how does this fit in with what else we read, you know? And I was kind of having a hard time connecting it to this week's readings. So I'm kind of with you on that one.
Yeah. No, just based on what you were saying just now, it makes me think like you were saying, oh, it's easy to just like get used to social norms and maybe just reframing it is supposed to help us realize that sometimes it's good to question social norms and it's good to think outside of the box and to be different even though like it doesn't come naturally at all. I think it yeah, because it's just right in front of us. It's easy to follow social norms, but it's an it's an uphill battle to challenge them.
Yeah.
There you go. It's an interesting one. Let me see.
What do you guys think of the liberal and conservative uh video? I am not a big political person, so I kind of was like I didn't focus so much on like the political side of what he was talking about. I kind of more just for focused on the moral roots. But I think the what he was talking about with openness to experiences is really important because if we aren't open to learning new things, then we're just not going to learn them. And I think that's really important with students because if our students come into class being like, "Oh, I already know everything, I'm not going to learn anything new," they're not open to that learning. And so they're not going to receive that learning. So I just wanted to know what you guys took out of it and kind of stuff.
Um, I feel like the main like idea that I brought from it was the difference between like that um Republicans are more like for stability and like consistency and tradition things like that, loyalty, and then Democrats are more for like change and openness and things like that. And so that's kind of what I thought. I thought it was super interesting when he was talking about like how um republic or like yeah, how like you can tell base a lot of things based about people like about what their political like beliefs might be based on like where, if they choose to eat at Applebee's or not. I thought that was super interesting because my dad hates Applebee's and I've never ate at Applebee's and everybody I know doesn't like Applebee's. So I was like, that's weird. Anyways, I don't know which group he was saying it was necessarily, but I'm like, I thought that was funny because I was like, oh, that's weird. I don't know. My I've just had very strong bad experiences with Applebee's in comparison to other restaurants for some reason. But anyways,
I thought it was interesting when it was talking about personality too. I feel like a lot of the way you're raised and your family and stuff is going to determine that. And also, I feel like sometimes like how you're raised and stuff, your political stance on stuff is more like respectful of what your family does so you don't upset them. I don't know, so that's kind of how I perceived it. So,
that makes sense.
yeah.
I kind of liked what he said about order tends to decay. Yeah, that was very interesting. It made me really like think about civilizations that have like fallen into decay because, someone stood up against the order and stuff. And it kind of just made me think like, are we decaying? Like, is our order of our country like I mean, we can kind of see it, but like, will it decay to the point where it needs to become something new? So that was just kind of something I was like, that was on my mind. That just stood out to me, but
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting too that they were like when he said like the balance is good and like to have like being open to new ideas is like a good thing because like we are a changing world, but also like it's important to keep old values that like really work and things like that. So I was like, that's kind of interesting. And I think if we could just cooperate with more ideas, more that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
Anyways, I did like the good behavior game though. I was like, oh, that's a win-win. Like that's so smart. Like you can't come up with a reason why you shouldn't do that.
When I was in elementary school, I didn't know it was the good behavior game until I was reading this, but we basically did the good behavior game where I think it was in third grade, my teacher would write a word on the board like good or um like student, kind of something like that. We like got to help choose the word. And if we were being good, if we were following directions, we did it as a whole class. It wasn't so much as like two teams. If we followed directions, if we got complimented on like being quiet in the hallway or like something like that, she would put a star on the lines that spelled the word. And when we filled up that word with stars, we would then get like a reward, like a pizza party or um, a candy or just kind of something like that. And um, I'm realizing that it really did help us like have those good behaviors and be better students. We didn't have a lot of disruptions in that class. Um, and then like thinking about we also did in fourth grade, we had like classroom money. Um, where if again we followed the rules and stuff like that, or we got a good grade on a test or something like that, we would get these, we called them smiley bucks. They looked like little money, and she would hand them out. And then once we got a certain amount, we could buy a prize out of the treasure chest, or you could save up a bunch and get a certain prize and stuff. And so I just really like was reflecting on that after reading this. I'm like, oh my gosh, we literally did this in my classes growing up, and realizing like, yeah, it really does help lower distractions and stuff. It doesn't get rid of them completely. There's always going to be those couple kids, but for the most part, it did help lower it. So I thought that was really cool to kind of be like, oh my gosh, we did this in my class. So
That is cool.
Like it, I like it. Well, should we move? Does anyone else have any other questions or do we want to move on?
Um, I don't think I have any.
Okay. Do you want to go to the 99 studies? Is that next or what's next? Yeah.
Yeah, we could do that one. Okay. Well, I could go first, I guess. Um, I think. one that I really liked was, let's see which one I should. Oh, that's funny. I'll share about the eating dinner together one. That's one that like my family really prioritized eating up, and like I knew this one because my dad would tell it to me. He'd be like, you know, you're like way more likely. It makes like a big difference that you're gonna like do well in school, and then you're not gonna get into drugs if we eat dinner together as a family every night. And so we made that a priority, and um, it's interesting that I do feel like that kind of was something grounding that helps kids to feel connected with their family and to learn from their parents, who I think are like the most important people for them to learn from, and to um, have time to like reflect and share and be open and just normal things like that. And so I just thought that was super cool. Um, it was interesting thinking, I'm like, as a teacher, there's not much I can do. I mean, like, if I'm a teacher, I'll have my own kids and I can have dinner with them. But it made me wonder if the it made me think like, how could I like tell this to parents in like a casual way? And I was like, I could send out like monthly newsletters to parents, and then like put a study and like be like, oh, updates, like we're doing this, and then it's like the study of the month or whatever, and I could be like, oh, the study for this month is I wanted to share about the impacts of eating dinner together as a family, and I'm like, I feel like that could be a cool way that you could reach the parents. I guess I don't know how much impact it would have, but I was like, that's something. Do you guys have any other ideas about how you could help families to do this as a teacher? I don't know. It's kind of hard to think of things for me. I don't know.
I think what you're saying about like I think you were talking about, I couldn't really hear you, but I think you were talking about like having a specific thing that they should talk about with their parents and then like report back to you. Is that what you were kind of saying?
So sorry, I forget I'm quiet.
You're
I don't
good.
know why. Um, I think you could send that like a monthly newsletter to, and it's kind of for the classroom to like update on things, but on the monthly newsletter, you put like a study every month. Because I feel like there's a lot of these studies that would be helpful for parents to know, and just choose a different one.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do that. Um, I think one way we could foster like talking with family and kind of thing like this is um maybe having like a requirement of like, hey, talk about what we learned in class today with your parents and then write like a paragraph reflection on what your parents thought about this kind of thing. Like, because you're going into music education, right, Lindy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like that one would be so fun to be able to do that with because you could be like, today we learned about like 1812 Overture and how there's cannons in it, or like something like that where they could share a cool music fact with their family and then like write just like a paragraph reflection on what their parents thought of that. And if they did it, what their parents thought of that and like what other discussions that like sparked. I think that could be a really fun way to do it.
Ooh, I like that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I don't think I have any ideas. I think it would just be beneficial because I feel like nowadays we're just really turning to our phones and stuff at the dinner table and growing up like we were always very adamant that like that just didn't happen at our dinner table. So I think those discussions and stuff are good to keep fostering that connection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. I can go next. I really liked the one about homework. Um, I'm very like not against homework, but I definitely think that some teachers can give too much, especially in like elementary to high school. Um, because I mean, it did say that we should reduce. Like it's more about how they do the homework instead of how much, which I thought was a really good point because I remember like doing math in like high school and it was just like the same question over and over and over and over again. And I was just like, can we do something different? And I get why, because it helps build that muscle of like remembering and stuff, but it does get to the point where it's just kind of like kids have better things to do. Like they want to go play with their friends and they want to go do sports and go do these other things. They don't want to spend 4 hours on homework after doing 7 hours of school. So I really liked how this one talked about like making sure that it's the right kind of homework and that the quality of the homework is more important of how much of the homework. Um, I guess my question about this one is like how can you um do this in your classroom? But also how can you apply homework to the world outside of the classroom? Like like how does this principle about reducing homework apply to our life outside of school? I guess is the question I'm trying to ask. So I guess I have two questions. How can you apply the principle of um, quality over quantity of homework? And then how does the principle of less homework, how can that apply to your life outside of school?
I think it's about time management and your mindset that you put into the homework. Because I think about like at a lifelong level, like the Lord obviously wants us to always be learning and progressing. And so he wants us like to be doing the homework in our scripture study or like learning new things. And I do think like an excessive amount isn't always necessary, but just like being able to understand the information enough to a certain level that you could probably teach it to someone is always a good thing. So I don't know if that answers it, but I think a lot of it has to do with your mindset.
I think I so this is the way that the first way that I thought of applying it is that so for violin, there's like practicing where you play through it and you don't play through it super well, and so you kind of practice learning it in a bad way
Hmm.
if you don't practice it correctly. And so that's kind of the first thing that I think of is don't practice bad habits just because they're quicker and you have a lot to get done. Instead, practice really good habits but for a short time because then they'll be able to give it more of their full attention if it's only going to be for a short time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like what you said about that because I remember when I was in like music and stuff in high school and my teacher was always like, don't practice wrong because then you play wrong when we come to like rehearsals and stuff like that. So I like that, like practicing good. So doing your homework well instead of just rushing through it. I like that.
I can go next with my C. Um, let's see. Oh, I thought the one that was talking about how much we forget, I was like, I'm just gonna read it because I feel like sometimes I'm a very forgetful person and I just, don't know if it's common or not. And so I thought was interesting when it was talking about like the students are likely to always forget the information you teach them, but that's also why in schools that we emphasize the review sessions and like recap and like quizzes and stuff. So it reinforces that memory. And then it talked about too that if you have important information that you want your students to learn and to comprehend, to always say it at the first of the lecture or at the last of the lecture, and they'll probably remember it. And I was like, oh, like that really makes sense. And some of my college classes, why they always give the important information at the beginning or the end, because I do tend to remember that. So I just thought it was interesting, and I'm not the only one like forgetting is normal. So
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. That's I feel like I'm learning so many good things that I want to apply as a teacher, and now the trick is just remembering them.
yeah.
I feel that way too.
All right, now the paper of the week. Um, so spanking is bad and it has negative outcomes. That's what I learned. I thought it was
Yeah, me
interesting
too.
that it was like that the it was pretty like it was hard to differentiate between like the effects of spanking and like literal just physical abuse. I was like, wow. Hmm.
As a child who was spanked growing up, um, I definitely agree that it is does not actually help. There was one part I think it talked about where there was no positive um effects from that came from spanking. Um, and I just thought that was very interesting because, like our parents grew up getting spanked in school or like our grandparents and stuff like that. And I'm like, I think back to that, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe they allowed that in schools. Like who who thought of that? And then like, yeah, I thought it was very int like yeah, there was no positive outcomes found. And that was just kind of something that my brain like latched onto because like like I said, I was spanked as a kid and I just remember like being so upset about it every time and just like but I never really learned my lesson. Like my butt would hurt for a bit and then I'd go on and do it again, like kind of thing. So I just like I don't know. And I can definitely see where the aggressive behaviors coming from, spanking comes from, where that kind of research, because like you're basically teaching your kids that physical discipline is okay and that aggression is the way to go. And so I can totally see why that was kind of found.
Mhm. I also think like I don't know. Like last week's paper of the week and this paper of the week, I don't know. Like they were good papers, but at the same point I was like, can we do something more like I don't know. Like yeah. I don't really have much to say about it. Other than I was like, oh, like of course it would do that, So I don't have much thoughts in that category.
Yeah, when I did the implications for teachers part, I was like, okay, so I'm not gonna spank my students at school. I
Yeah.
thought that was kind of funny. But it made me think. Um, I did have a question that I wrote down that I would want your thoughts on. And it said like it's found that like physical punishment is not helpful or whatever, but I wonder like when I hear physical punishment, I'm also kind of like, oh, like push-ups or jumping jacks. I mean, like maybe it's lumping it into a different thing, but that's also like somewhere my brain just goes. And so I wonder if that also has negative effects or not. I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I think my first thought on that is the intention with the physical punishment of spanking. You are um I had a word to describe it, now I can't think of it. You are basically you're punishing them. Um you're using your stance as a parent um in a way that it shouldn't be used. Or you're kind of power hungry when you spank your kids or hit your kids and stuff. And I think instead giving them having them do push-ups or jumping jacks is much different because of the mentality behind it. Um with like because I remember in like when I was in softball in high school, if we had a bad game or if we made like a certain amount of errors, I think we had to do a burpee and an error in the game. And sometimes we had like 10 burpees because we did not have a good game. And it really like cements it into us like, okay, if we don't want this, if we don't want to have to do burpees, then we're gonna do better in our game. Um, so I think it's just kind of the thought process behind it, where like with spanking, it's very much like a dominance thing, whereas like having them exercise is kind of showing them like, hey, what you did wasn't right. Um, but instead of like getting mad at you or something, I'm gonna help you grow and help you figure out why that was wrong or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Totally. I think it makes more. Oh, sorry.
I,
I was just gonna say I think it might
what?
make more sense in a softball context or like a sport context than it
yeah.
does in the classroom, and that's kind of what I was thinking based on just what
Okay.
you're talking. But go ahead, Cortland.
Oh, you're good. Sorry, someone was walking by with music, so I couldn't even hear in the first place. I don't know. I feel like there needs to be a consequence though for bad actions. Like I think not ever addressing the problem is always a good thing. And I will not say like spanking is the way to address it, but like growing up, like when we did something bad or stuff, we would like have to run around the house or
Hmm.
do jumping jacks or push-ups and stuff. And I think like with softball and stuff, it taught you more resilience and it taught you the matter of respect. And so I think sometimes in society we're losing the idea of respect and being responsible and stuff. So I guess just find out ways to implement that in the classroom and as parents and stuff. So
Mm, totally. So this is interesting to hear your thoughts because I personally have never actually like I ran cross country, but other than that, my parents never really gave me physical punishment. Like my coach never like was like, "Oh, you did bad. Like run a lap." Like I mean, he'd say, "No, that's just like practice," you know.
Hmm.
And so I my one I have another question for you guys. I feel like if something is associated with punishment, it can sometimes be negative. My worry with this one is that if you make exercise the punishment, then it'll just make kids more like what's it called? Like want to avoid exercise more because they're like,
Hmm.
"Oh no, that's the punishment. Like it's not good to have to do that." I want to hear your like thoughts about that because you both kind of have done that sort of stuff as punishment. Do you feel like that's changed your mindset about exercise or not really?
Um,
I feel like it's just made me stronger. Like
yeah.
I don't know if
I
that
was
was
like,
the effect,
I
but
was like, there's physical, like, you get physical, um, growth from it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you aren't just like, with spanking, you don't gain anything from it other than a bruised behind. But, with like doing jumping jacks or burpees, they gain those muscles and they gain the attitude of, hey, actually, this exercise is doing something good for me. Which
Mm-hmm.
can have a negative effect because they can be like, well, I'm just going to keep doing bad things and then I'll do more exercise. But hopefully it teaches them that, hey, exercise is good and you can find a different way to um show that you're upset or show that you're having these emotions instead of acting out. And so that's kind of what I think of with it. Honestly, the coach that made us do burpees was I didn't like her at all. She was not the greatest person, but I think the burpees and like there was different punishments for different things, but that really did help us be like, okay, we don't want to do burpees this week, so we're gonna make sure that the skills that we practice in practice are put to use in the game. Getting our glove down to the ground so the ball doesn't go through our legs, making sure we're throwing it to the right person so that it we don't score so someone doesn't score a run on us. Like it really did put into our mind that hey, we need to be better so that we don't have to do this. And I think that's kind of where it comes from. But like I get why you're saying that may makes kids not like exercise, but I think if they focus on the, hey, I'm gaining muscles, I'm getting stronger by doing this, then it's a win-win situation.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I also feel like exercise was always expected in our home growing
Mhm.
up. And so like it normally was just seen as a good thing and like you don't tell my parents no, like it's just respect and stuff. And so I don't know, like it never really had a negative connotation because that's just what you did. So
Mm-hmm. Totally. No, that's good. I was just curious about what your thoughts would be on that. Thanks for sharing. Well,
One of the implications for teachers I thought of is you were just saying you couldn't really like you didn't really like know what to put for that one other than like don't spank your students kind of thing. One of the ones I thought about was that like a lot of times if kids are acting out aggressively or being defiant or being disruptive, it's because something is going on at home or something, or they're getting bullied at school or something. And so I think realizing that, and sometimes they really just do, and sometimes they want attention because they don't get attention, negative or positive at home. And so they act out to get that attention at school. And so I think understanding that it doesn't come necessarily from a place of wanting to hurt other people just to hurt other people. They want attention and they want people to hurt like them they want people to hurt like them. They want attention because they don't have it at home. So I think one of the implications for this is just understand that we don't always know what's going on at home and that they may be acting out today because, you know, dad was yelling at a football game and it really scared them that day or something like that. Like, you know, it doesn't always have to be big things like getting hit. It could really honestly just be mom and dad work opposite shifts. Dad works in the morning, comes home and sleeps as soon as he gets home. Mom works night shifts and sleeps when she gets home kind of thing, where they don't get attention. And so they aren't doing it to be mean. They are doing it because it's a scream for help in a way. They're saying, hey, I am in need of something, but I'm not getting it at home. So please help in a way. So I think just understanding that and maybe talking to our students and seeing if we can get to the bottom of it and help them understand that, you know, yes, it sucks that this is going on at home and I'm really sorry and maybe we can help them. But helping them understand that the way they're seeking attention isn't the correct way to seek attention. So I think that's one of the implications.
That's that's good. I like that. That's definitely more applicable and helpful than just not spanking our students because I don't think that's going to be a problem for us.
I don't know. Sometimes you just want to like shake them and just be like, please just sit down, like kind of thing. But
Mhm. Totally. Well, I don't really have anything else to share. Is there? We went over all the portions, correct?
I believe so.
yeah.
Okay. I'll probably be here next week, but maybe not. I'm gonna be in San